just like a total freak accident. I got like catapulted off the back of a golf cart,
Oh my
face
gosh.
planted. Um, and at that time, I had a near-death experience. And so I actually left my body during that time. I could see like angels surrounding me. I had somewhat of like I guess I would like describe it as like a slideshow of like different memories. And like I just kept thinking about my kids and just like being like, no, it's not my time. I can't go. I can't go. And I just like zoomed right back into my body.
Hi, everyone. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to remind you that there are two ways to support the podcast. First is through the Finding Fulfillment Together store, which is now officially opened, and you can find items like the sweatshirt I'm wearing now. Says fearfully and wonderfully made. I think it's backwards in the camera, but that's okay. And there's lots of other options in there that will proclaim your Christianity to the world, perfect for you to wear or to purchase for friends and family with Christmas coming up. I hope you find some stuff in there that you like. Also, the second way is to make donations. In the link tree in the description, you will see a way to make donations, and you can do a one-time donation or a recurring monthly donation, whatever works for you. Thank you so much to those of you who have made donations. It truly means the world to me, and to those that choose to do so in the future. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all. Let's jump into today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Finding Fulfillment Together podcast. I'm very excited about today's testimony. It is my friend Kelly. I have heard her testimony and I'm so looking forward to hearing it again. And so grateful, Kelly, that you picked the Finding Fulfillment Together podcast to share your testimony. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I hope you are all excited. This is a really, really amazing, miraculous story. And I'm grateful again to know you, to know your story, and to have you a part of our New Age to Jesus group where we're able to communicate and support each other, through all the things that we're going through this walk together. So grateful to have you as a friend. Um, so let's go ahead and kick it off, and you can just take us from the beginning, like go back to your childhood. Did you have faith as a child?
Um, so as a child, I was baptized as a child, but we didn't go to church. I did go to church on occasion with girlfriends. I just was always instinctively drawn to that, but I didn't really understand Christianity. I grew up. My parents were divorced, so I had my mom and my stepdads at home, which was great. And then I would go to my biological father's house like every other weekend. And it was kind of a mixture of light and dark, my growing up. The time that I spent at my biological father's house was pretty dark and abusive. And I could feel like a lot of like darkness and heaviness and sometimes like saw things. I was exposed to like horror movies and things like that when I was over there. So
Okay. And then when you were with your mom, you weren't watching things like that?
no, no, I
Yeah.
definitely wasn't watching things like that. And I remember a time when I actually watched a horror movie. I think it was The Exorcist. I watched a horror movie at my biological father's house, and I came home and I told my mom I needed a Bible. I
Mm.
needed her to get me a Bible, and I didn't know why I was asking for that at the time, but she did get me a Bible, and I slept with it for a long time,
Wow.
probably years, but I never opened it.
Wow. That's interesting. Did your mom go to church?
She didn't, no,
Okay. But she had a
no.
Bible to give you.
Or she got me one, I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So was there any talk in your house at all about Jesus?
No,
Mm.
none,
Okay.
none. And which was strange because like I said, I always like knew him in my heart and would like quietly pray to him. And maybe some of that was the exposure I had with friends going to church.
Hmm.
But it definitely wasn't from my home. My grandmother did go to church and she did speak of Jesus. So I did hear about him from her.
Okay. Okay. There's always at least one.
Yes. Yes. She was probably the one that was planting the seeds.
Yeah. Okay, so now, so that's your childhood. You move into like teenage years, high school years, college. What happened during those years?
Well, let me back up. So, like childhood. I did dabble in which I now know to be like witchcraft, occulty things in childhood. Definitely played with Ouija boards and did those like silly games like Bloody Mary and Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, things like that, which, as a lot of children partake in and think it's just harmless fun. And it's
Yeah.
not. And I, again, instinctively kind of knew it wasn't because I would be terrified after, and I would have this heaviness and darkness just surrounding me. And during those times, I would find myself praying, and it would get better.
Yeah, I think it's wild. I mean, I think it's because a lot of us just don't understand the spiritual realm, right? Until you do. But
Mhm.
when you're children and there's parents raising children, thinking Ouija boards, again, it's just a game. It's just a toy. It's no big deal. Like I saw a Ouija board for like toddler age, that was like all plastic and like colorful. And I'm like, people do not know what they're messing with. Like the spiritual realm is very, very real. And all these stories that you hear about people having these experiences where the Ouija board actually did something. Like I used to always just think that people were making that up. Like someone with their hands on that little triangle thing, were moving it, right? But the more stories I hear and the more I know how real the spiritual realm is, like you are, like you're having a seance. You're calling on evil spirits.
So I remember one time, I don't know how old I was, probably somewhere between like 10 and 12. And we were doing a Ouija board. It was a bunch of I was a gymnast, and it was a bunch of my like gymnastics friends. And one time I wanted to communicate with my grandfather that had passed away.
Hmm.
And so I started asking it questions that I knew only he would know. And it was very accurate. And so I think at that time, it also confirmed to me that there was definitely something larger than us. And of course, at the time, I believed I was communicating with him.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. But yeah. Oh man, demons, they will act as whoever you want them to, as long as
Yeah,
you'll listen to them.
yeah.
Um, okay, so was that kind of the start of you getting into new agey stuff, or what? How old were you when all that kind of started?
I mean, that was the new age stuff. I was always drawn to like crystals and different metaphysical things, even as a kid too, in hindsight. Um, and then and then I went to college. Well, then I had high school, went to college. Very little, if any, spirituality. I really struggled with a lot of anxiety and coped by numbing with alcohol and all drugs and all the things,
Hmm.
and basically just became a huge partier.
Hmm.
And so there wasn't any church, there wasn't any praying, there was really not much of anything during that time.
Yeah.
But I will say I had a couple like really eventful things happen in my life during that time. I was mugged at gunpoint, different things like that, and I always felt very protected. I always found myself in these like horrific, horrible things, and I'd end up being okay.
Yeah. You were
At a,
mugged at gunpoint. How old were you when that happened?
I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's why. And were you like, did you walk away okay from that? Like,
perfectly fine. Yeah,
wow.
perfectly fine. Yeah.
Wow. That is scary.
And then I had another time where, and this is kind of where things turned for me. I ended up having children, getting married. Well, I went through a horrific divorce, and that was another time where I really turned to my faith. I was having a very hard time. I was pregnant at the time. I went through a divorce, and I broke out the Bible and I started praying, and it really got me through some hard times.
During the divorce. So
Yeah,
you have very little background with the Bible or Jesus or any connection to God. But when you're going through a hard time, that's the first place you turned.
first place.
That is very interesting.
And I always had random like pop-ins of like just Christian, like a Christian at work that would like see me when I was going through that time and kind of remind me of that. And it just, yeah, always had the right people at the right time, like kind of leading me back towards it.
Yeah. Yeah. He had his hand on you. It's just you
Oh,
you weren't opening that door, you know?
mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. So you go through some really traumatic experiences, but now you have children. You've gone through a
Mhm.
divorce, but you're married now a second
Yes,
time.
married now, second marriage. And then I found myself in a horrific golf cart accident, actually, in Mexico. Just like a total freak accident. I got like catapulted off the back of a golf cart,
Oh my
face
gosh.
planted. Um, and at that time, I had a near-death experience. And so I actually left my body during that time. I could see like angels surrounding me. I had somewhat of like I guess I would like describe it as like a slideshow of like different memories. And like I just kept thinking about my kids and just like being like, no, it's not my time. I can't go. I can't go. And I just like zoomed right back into my body.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty wild.
And this was in Mexico. So
It was in
when you zoomed back into your body, were you still like on the ground in the golf cart? Were you in the hospital?
Yeah, I was on the ground. And it was on an island and there was no hospitals or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So you zoom back into your body, and now at this point, you like remember this spiritual experience and these angels.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so that was really the only spiritual significance of it, except for that I again knew there's more.
Mhm.
And I also felt I'm being saved again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Did you
So I
connect that at that time to Jesus or the Bible?
no,
Mm.
no,
Okay.
no. And so I went through the process of healing. It was quite a lot of healing to do. I had broken my jaw in three places and had to have all my teeth replaced.
Oh my gosh.
So in that process, well, let me back up. I I had to get home from Mexico. So, and they didn't want me getting any sort of surgeries there. So they recommended I go home. And as you can imagine, that flight home was not awesome.
Mm.
And I was in a lot of pain. And I found myself praying.
Mm. Okay.
So
Wow.
so I did pray to get through it. I got home, I had the surgery, I had to be wired shut. And so
Whoa.
then I found myself for 6 weeks forced fasting,
Mm.
um, which I don't know if you've done a lot of fasting, but for me, when I'm fasting and I'm clear, I often get a lot more messages from the
Yeah.
spiritual. And so while I was laying there, I just got a lot of different messages. And um, I walked away from that feeling like I had more work to do on myself
Mm.
and I had more healing to do. And one of those things was in regards to the drinking. I wasn't drinking nearly as often because I had children. But when I did drink, I couldn't control it. Not all the time, but even once in a while, it would get ugly, and it just wasn't how I wanted to live my life anymore. And I knew it wasn't serving me. So at that point is when I decided alcohol had to pretty much go from my life. And I started just looking into all different kinds of like healing modalities to try to heal me physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of the things. And that's when I found Reiki.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
And I got Reiki certified. I got into pranic healing. I started buying all the crystals, doing all the meditations. I went to a couple meditation retreats in the Blue Ridge Mountains, an institute called the Monroe Institute, where they use binaural beats and teach you different things like mediumship or
Mhm.
um, what is it called? When you travel in your dreams,
Oh,
astral
astral projection.
astral
Yeah.
projection, which I was never good at. But
Mm.
I was able to do the mediumship and to tap in and to do all of those things. So I was just getting into a lot of what I now know to be very questionable and demonic things. But at the time I thought it was ways that I was trying to heal myself.
Right. Right. So what did you like? Did you get healing from those things? Like, how did you feel during that time?
I did. I mean, I did. I did get temporary healing at the time, but it would never last. And, it would be, I'd get some relief and then I wouldn't feel good again. And then I'd want to try the next thing or I'd need to do that again. And it was just like a revolving door.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same experience with those types of things. Um, okay. So how long were you going through that process of trying all these different things?
Cool. So honestly, the last 5 years has
Mm,
really been, I've been very focused in the new age. I even got down, I went down the rabbit hole pretty far, and I got to the point where I was, doing like full moon rituals and
mhm,
different things like that. So where it kind of peaked for me was about 2 years ago. I decided that I was going to do plant medicine. I still had this like lingering anxiety that I couldn't really get rid of. And that was something that I really wanted to work through. And I had, done the therapy and done all the things, and it just still had this bit of anxiety. So I was like, okay, maybe this plant medicine can help me resolve this.
yeah.
So I decided to go to Peru and I went to on a retreat where they were doing two different types of plant medicines. They were doing San Pedro and ayahuasca.
Mhm,
Um, so I did those. And from from that point forward, things just spiraled and got really, really dark for me.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like actually while you were at the retreat, it was
Yeah.
dark?
Yeah. It actually started being dark, if I'm being honest, from the second of arriving
Mm,
there. And even prior to going, I actually, I forgot about this. But before going, I kept envisioning crosses,
mm.
and I bought crosses and put them up in my bedroom and my children's bedrooms before I went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I wasn't necessarily connecting it, but in
Yeah,
hindsight,
just something told you like go get some crosses and hang them up.
yep.
So before, like when you were going through just before plant medicine, you were doing Reiki and the other healing things. Were there any dark experiences then?
Not really.
Mhm.
No. But I also think I was living in darkness. So I
Yeah,
don't know that I would have really, unless it was something significant, I probably wouldn't have noticed it.
yeah. So okay, so when you say it got dark, what did it really feel like, and what did you experience?
So it started it started while I was there. The anxiety was just getting intense. And some of that I attributed to maybe I was nervous to do the plant medicines and things like that. But after it was completed and the plant medicines were done, the rest of the trip was more like sightseeing, and we were doing like horseback riding and going to Machu Picchu. And even during that time, my anxiety was just significantly
Mm-hmm.
high. And on actually when I went to the airport on the way out, I had my first panic attack that I've ever had on the way
Wow.
on the way home. And then I got home and something really crazy happened. I had taken I it was one of those like deities, like a yoga deity. I don't remember which one, but I had taken that statue with me to Peru and put it on the altar,
Mm-hmm.
and I brought it home with me. And it was in my suitcase, and I had just gotten home from my trip. I had a golden retriever named Tucker at the time, and he went through my suitcase. He went rummaging through my suitcase, which he never did. He wasn't like that. And he went rummaging through my suitcase, pulled out this statue and threw it across the room. It broke into pieces, and then he ran around for like 10 minutes like a nutbag. And I just knew it was energetic. Something came home with me. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Um, And so I actually at that time went over to a friend's house, one of my friends who did Reiki, and I asked her to do some like energy clearing on me and like sage me and things like that. And she felt like there was something that was attached to me at that time. Um,
Mm.
and so my dog shortly after that started limping and turned out to have bone cancer.
Mm. Oh no.
And yeah, and ended up having to be amputated and passed away shortly after. I
Mm.
don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think maybe he took something for me. Um,
Oh.
yeah, I still have like a lot of, shame around that. Um, but can't live backwards. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, also during that time, I started sleeping with the lights on.
Mm.
I was just in a constant state of fear and anxiety about everything, really everything. And nothing I was doing was helping. Yeah, and I hit the point where I was almost like hopeless.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're kind of reminding me of when I was on these calls after I went and took ayahuasca, I would do these integration calls with a bunch of people, and a lot of people would have similar experiences where it was so dark and they were like, I don't think I could ever go back and do that again. And the advice was always like, maybe you should. So were you told by people that you should try it again?
No. Luckily,
Mm.
one of the people that I connected with on the retreat, who is my boyfriend, um, he he kind of understood what I was going through, and he actually felt it was spiritual warfare as well, and I don't think he thought that that would be a good idea for me to do it again.
Yeah, well, that's good. At least because yeah, I know a lot of people that end up going back and then it just gets worse. Or maybe they have one good experience and then they go back and like it just keeps drawing you back into darker and darker stuff. So I'm grateful that you stayed away at that point. But
Mhm.
okay, so now you're feeling dark. You have all this negative energy around. You said you went to your friend for Reiki. Did you try other things to try to get rid of this darkness?
I mean, I tried all the things like that I knew to do, like on myself. I was doing lots of like sound healing and salt
Mhm.
baths and um, really anything I could try to feel better. I was doing a lot of like physical exercise and,
Mhm.
yoga and Pilates and hiking and so I was getting some relief, but I was severely oppressed. It peaked to the point last winter where it turned into physical illness, like a mystery physical illness, and I couldn't even like leave the bed.
Mm.
I would like curl up in a ball and just like rock and like
Wow.
try to like get through my day because I knew I had to get up and I had responsibilities and I had to work and I had to take care of the kids, but like I was struggling to even do life.
And it was a physical illness, you say mystery, because like doctors couldn't give you a
Correct.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
I feel like there is so much of that. And then it's called, they've come up with names to call it, like, oh, it's something
Autoimmune.
autoimmune. Yeah, autoimmune disease or fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is very mysterious. No one really
Mhm,
knows what that is.
mhm.
And I feel like these things are spiritual. There's
They're all
just no way to
spiritual,
scientifically prove
incredible.
that?
That's it. I agree
Oh,
wholeheartedly. I think a lot of mental illness, to be honest,
mhm.
is that.
Yeah, yeah. Wild. Okay, so now what happens next? Let's see,
So
yeah.
what happens next? My boyfriend was actually here visiting me from Australia, and he saw how sick I was and everything I was going through, and I said to him at that time, I said, I feel like this is spiritual. And because he was familiar with it, he agreed. He thought it was too. And we weren't really even sure how to attack it. We were trying all the things that we knew to do. But like I said, they weren't working. So at that time, instinctively, I started praying Psalm 91 and putting up more crosses. Um, and at that point, things weren't really helping. Probably about it was probably days later. I had a girlfriend of mine who is a very devout Christian stop by my house to drop something off. And she said to me, she's like, Kelly, she's like, I don't know how to say this to you. She's like, but she's like, I think I know why you're sick. And I was like, why? And she's like, I think you're being spiritually attacked. And I was like, well, and I just started bawling, crying. And I was like, well, thank you for confirming to me what I already knew, because I had just mentioned that to my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said, I think you're doing things and you have things in your possession that you shouldn't have, and that might be causing some of this.
Hmm.
And so I was at that point, like I said, I was open to hearing anything. And so I invited her into my home. I asked her to like walk around the house with me and tell me if there was anything she thought I should get rid of or shouldn't have. I had contained most of my new agey stuff to one room in my home, which I call my Zen den. And it had, like a Buddha statue and some Buddha flags and a lot of things that I had gotten in Peru, and that my boyfriend had brought over from Peru, different crystals and things like that. So we boxed up everything that she thought was questionable, and I put it in one of those big storage bins, and I set it in my backyard. but and she made it very clear to me that I needed to get rid of these things. But there I was not ready to do so.
You got them
But
out of the house. That was a start.
I got them out of the house. I got them out of the house, and I started praying consistently. We blessed the house. She brought me some different prayer books, and she came over and would pray over me daily. And at that point, things started to shift. Yeah.
Okay. So
And things,
she was coming over daily to pray for you. That's
yes.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And she actually linked me up with a deliverance pastor.
Okay.
And we did do some deliverance stuff at that time too.
Okay. But at this point you're open to it. You haven't like fully accepted like that you believe in Jesus, that he's your Lord and Savior. You're just allowing her to say these prayers. You're allowing the deliverance minister to say some prayers over you, kind of like open.
Well, she had asked me at that time, actually, she said, have you ever accepted Jesus?
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, like I believe in Jesus. I pray to Jesus, but I didn't understand like fully surrendering it to him. So I was like praying to him and believing in him, but I was also still doing all the other things.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah.
Now you have the things out of your house. She's praying over you. What are you feeling during this time? Are you feeling better? Are things changing?
Yeah, things are getting better. I'm physically getting better. The like fear is lifting. I mean, it didn't ever lift completely, but it left to the point where I could function again, and
Mhm.
I was able to work, and
Yeah.
yeah, so things got better. And probably for like the next 9 months or so, things were just normal, status quo. Things were good. They were great. And around that time, I started going to church again. I would go on occasion on holidays, like Easter and Christmas, throughout the years.
Yeah.
And my kids went to a Christian preschool and things like that. So there was little bits of Christianity and church in there. But Easter time, my kids actually said to me, and they're like, "Mom, why don't we go to church more often?" And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think you guys wanted to. And they were like, "Yeah, we do." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, I'd like to too. So let's start going regularly."
Oh, cool.
So we started going regularly, and things just continued to feel better. And they kept talking about small groups and how if you want to increase your faith, like we have these small groups. And I just kept feeling a tug that I needed to dive deeper. And the small group was probably the next best step for me.
Okay.
So I decided that I was going to join that starting in September. And I felt good about it until probably the night before the very first meeting. I like everything in me did not want to go. And
Hmm.
there I was coming up with every possible reason of why it was not a good idea to go. Like I've had a different life than these people. Most of these people have been Christians their whole life. They're like super pure. And I'm gonna go and share my stories and they're gonna be like, whoa, what a heathen. So I was just like, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah.
Um, and luckily my boyfriend at the time like told me I needed to go. He was like, listen, I think you're getting resistance for a reason, and I think this will be good for you. He's like, something in me is just telling me that like you need to go.
Yeah.
And so he pushed me to go. So I went, and that first session I just felt so uncomfortable, like crawling out of my skin, like back to how I felt
Mm.
the winter before, like just anxious and all this like negative talk in my head, and
Mm.
it wasn't pleasant. So I left that night, went to sleep. I forgot to mention during the winter when I was feeling like severely oppressed, I was having horrible nightmares
Hmm.
consistently, like every single night.
Wow.
And those went away. And the first night that I go to the small group, I have a nightmare again.
Mm.
And it was like very similar to the ones I was having back then. So I immediately knew, okay, here comes spiritual attacks again.
Hmm.
And I knew why. I knew it was because I was on the right path and I was getting closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's really wise of you to know that because someone else might have thought like, "Oh no, that caused nightmares. I'm not going back there."
yeah,
They
no,
might
I think
not
I
go
had
back to
known
church.
enough and seen enough at that point
Yeah.
that I was like, okay.
Good. Okay.
Um, but I still didn't want to go again
Mhm.
because all I kept thinking was like, I mean, it was to the point where I felt I was dying. I really felt I was dying. I had lost 30 pounds during that time. Like
Wow.
I got so sick. And so I was like, I don't want to go through this again. Like I was terrified to go through that again, but I knew I had to. And so
Mm.
I made myself go to the second week. And I had thought about, sharing with these girls some of my experiences, but again, I felt like such a fish out of water. I was like, if I bring up these stories,. These people are gonna think I've.
Yeah.
So go figure, that night, one of the leaders of my group brings up a story about being spiritually attacked. And
Mhm.
she's talking about how every time she does this curriculum, how she gets spiritually attacked, and how, as they get closer to the conference, which is essentially somewhat of a deliverance, that she starts getting more and more pushback. And I'm like, okay, here's my in. I can talk to these people. Like they're gonna get it. So at the end of the night, we write down on a card. We get like a one-on-one prayer, and I wrote down protection
Mhm.
because I could feel it coming. And so I sat down and I told the girl, she's like, okay, you're looking for protection. Like, what does this mean? And so I decided to share with her some of my history of
Mhm.
how I'd gone to Peru and done the plant medicine, and that I'd been experiencing a lot of darkness, and how I felt like I was being very spiritually attacked last winter. And she heard my story and immediately confirmed, like, she felt that was exactly what was happening again.
Mm.
And she asked me the same question my other friend did, and she said, have you claimed Jesus Christ as your savior? And
Mhm.
at that time, it kind of hit different, and it wasn't like, oh, Jesus is in my heart. And I was like, you mean like ever said it out loud? And she's like, yeah, like read a salvation prayer and like, and I was like, no, I don't think I ever have. And she was like, let's start there. She was like, I'm feeling like you need to do that. And for whatever reason, I like just stood up with like such authority and like read this prayer and felt like super empowered. The girls prayed over me, Psalm 91, of course.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I left there feeling like really, really good and like, okay, I'm on the right path and just awesome and empowered. And 6 minutes later, from the point when they played those prayers over me, on my drive home, I got into a horrific accident.
Whoa.
And it was like not an accident that you should walk away from. And as it was happening, I mean, it was painful, it was scary, but I felt this sense of peace over me during the whole thing. I almost felt like I was just like being like held, like hugged, like because I had gotten hit, spun, rolled, and hit a pole, and so there was like lots of movement, and I just felt like
Wow.
held in place.
Wow.
Um, and so I got they pulled me out of the vehicle, and I was waiting for the ambulance to come, and a woman comes out of nowhere, prays over me, Psalm 91, and just disappears. And
Wow.
she felt so familiar and so comforting, like in the midst of like all this chaos, and then she just disappeared.
Wow. Did you
Yeah.
have a lot of injuries from that?
No, no. I had one really bad deep scratch on my arm,
Wow.
and some neck issues, but that was it.
Wow. Don't you have
Um,
a picture of the car that maybe I can put on the screen for people to
I
see? Yeah.
do. Yes, I will share
Wow.
that with you. Yes.
Unbelievable. There's so much of I have the chills coursing through my body, like crazy. Like,
And
okay, this
and
yeah.
and to make things even more interesting, the street name where it happened was Forest Valley Drive. So had me in the valley.
Wow. Okay, so Psalm 91, because I wanted to ask this earlier. You said that you would pray Psalm 91. Why did you choose that? Like, was it how did you know Psalm 91 was something you should pray or read?
I don't know if it was something someone had shared with me or if it was just instinctual, but it felt like a prayer that was for protection.
Mhm.
And it felt strong and it felt like it
Yeah.
worked. So,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
an amazing psalm for that. And then the fact that, man, that's crazy that at the meeting, that's what they prayed over you as you said the salvation prayer. And then 6 minutes later, this accident happens and you were protected.
Absolutely.
Like
And
unbelievable.
that was really my like saving moment. And when I like fully surrendered to Jesus, because I was like, okay, I see you, like in the midst of all this chaos, like here you are protecting me, like more powerful than anything. And I just like, yeah, I mean, it was very profound for me. I started wearing a cross and haven't taken it off since.
And this woman, did you ever see her again that came and
No,
prayed over you?
no, have no idea.
That's unbelievable. That's
Yeah,
just wow. Like, wow. Well, that's a miracle.
yeah,
So, okay.
absolutely.
So now since then, and you said you put the cross on, you've been saved, literally and figuratively, all of it, like you are saved. So now what has life been like since then?
So after that, I still felt like I was in the midst of like a serious spiritual attack.
Right.
And luckily I had found this community
Mhm.
of amazing Christians, that just surrounded me and made me feel, protected and not judged and just amazing, amazing people. And so I continued to go to my small group. And I think probably a week or two after the accident, we were going through an exercise. I can't think of the scripture, the prayer, but maybe you can, where it's like, show me, reveal to me what's not of you, basically.
Oh yeah, yeah. The end of Psalm 139. It's like the last two verses. Like search my heart for anything that
Yes.
is not of you. Yeah.
Yes, that is it.
Yeah.
So that was our curriculum for that week. And
Mm.
I just kept feeling like I've got stuff that has to go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept thinking about that box of stuff that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew it was time for it to go. And so I talked to my small group leader and told her, and she's like, okay. And she's like, well, do you want us to come over to your house? We can bless your house. We can pray over you. We can burn the things. She's like, we'll have a burn party. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
And so like four of the ladies from the church came over. They prayed over me. They prayed over the house. We staked the property, with some prayers, took communion, and we went around the house to see if there was any lingering new agey things. They did put a few more things in the box, that
Mm.
weren't originally in the box. And then we had a burn party and burned, all of the things. And that was interesting. Definitely some weird things happening during the burning.
Yeah.
Some things burned pretty funky. We had like a sheet. Actually, one of the women, when she came over, she asked me, she said, do you have anything that you wore during the ceremonies? She's like, I feel like she's like, is there's like a white gown with like some print on it? And I was like, no, like I just wore regular clothes. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then when we were going through the box and burning some things, my boyfriend had brought over some things from Peru, and we found a white gown in
Mm.
there that looked like what she described. So I was like, oh, okay. And sure enough, that one burned funky. It was like a sheet, and it coiled up into like a snake and burned for like an hour and wouldn't burn.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then it just had like all this dark black smoke like flying off of it.
Oh, wow.
And they had taken some pictures of like the flames. And in hindsight, going back and looking at those, I think I shared one with you. Like you
Yeah.
could see like faces in there and stuff. So there's no doubt in my mind I had some things that maybe had attachments to them,
Yeah.
that we got rid of at that time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're so I've burned a bunch of my books, but there's some more stuff that I just kind of thought of recently that's in my RV that I'm like I need to burn that stuff. And a couple of them are the journals that I wrote in while I was there and like the messages I got from ayahuasca are in those journals and I've reread them so many times, but it's been a while. And I was telling this to someone the other day, a spiritual friend that was like, don't read them again. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good
That is a
advice.
good point.
Yeah.
And I'll say, some of the stuff like I thought I considered it to be more dangerous, like the plant medicine stuff associated with Peru and plant medicine. But a lot of the things that I burned were just like meditation books
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that that I considered to be pretty harmless. But I actually think some of those were the ones where some
Mhm.
of the attachments were.
Yeah, I even have, it's funny you brought that up because I have a meditation pillow and a yoga mat that I used every single day, both of those things to do yoga, meditation, and breath work. And I said this recently to someone, like, I'm gonna burn those too. And my friend was like, well, it's just a mat. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm feeling like there's something there and I'm just gonna burn them. Like, I don't even want to take that risk. So yeah,
Yeah.
I need to have a burn party coming up soon.
All right. All right. I'm in for it.
But wow, that is, I think one of the most amazing parts of the story is the fact that your church was so immediately open to understanding the spiritual warfare and being there for you to get you through this when, because that's exactly what you needed. And not every church talks about those things.
No, and I wouldn't say my church does like on a broader perspective, but I think I just connected with the right girls that
Mm.
happen to be very knowledgeable in those areas.
Yeah.
And kind of prayer warriors, if you will.
Yeah.
I definitely think it was, God ordained that I ended up in that group and with the people that I did,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So now all those new age practices you were, kind of doing, did you like immediately stop doing all of that or was it kind of a process?
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to share another thing about I kept praying after that burning.
Mm.
And very shortly after that, more things kept coming to me, like very clearly. Like I would get like, go over to that table and look in the left-hand drawer, and there would be things.
Oh, wow.
And it was really things that you wouldn't think would be spiritually dangerous, but like one thing was a shark tooth necklace that I had gotten my son.
Mm.
Another thing was like a seashell that I didn't even know where it came from, but it had Haiti on it. And I'm just
Mm.
thinking they do a lot of dark arts and black magic. And and I got rid of all of these things. And after getting rid of all of these things, things just started to like shift and like completely lighten. Like the atmosphere was so much better. I felt like a peace around me, zero anxiety from that day forward,
Wow.
like none. And he just took away my desires for the new agey stuff. So yeah, I would say from that point forward, I really haven't touched or done anything like that just because I haven't wanted to. I
Right. Yeah, because in my mind,
haven't
it's like
gone to yoga.
yeah. Wait, what was that? Sorry.
I haven't gone back to yoga since that point either.
Yeah. Because
After learning some things.
yeah, I look at it as like I was turning to all of those things because I was looking for peace. I was looking for calm. I was looking for a spiritual connection. And now I realize I have Jesus, like I don't need anything else. I don't need a substance. I don't need a practice. I mean, outside of prayer, reading the Bible, and that's it. That's it, really. A fellowship, going to church. I don't need to do anything to be in communion with him and to feel what like he provides me, the relief from anxiety, the peace, like all those things that I was seeking. So, yeah.
And that's exactly it. And what I've figured out, it took me the hard way to get there.
Yeah.
But same thing. I mean, what I was doing in dabbling in all those different things, I was looking for peace, I was looking for healing, I was looking for love.
Yeah.
And then when I fully surrendered to him, I had all of that. And I've never been more filled, and I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's it. He's it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So what has been the reaction from your children?
My children like have loved to see the transformation that's gone on in me, and they have actually joined a youth group. My older son and I decided to get baptized, and we got
Yay.
baptized this past month. So that was awesome, and I got to do it with him. So that was really a cool experience, and I just feel God moving not only in my life, but in my whole family's life.
Yeah. And it says that there's scripture that says like the whole family will come with you. Like when one person accepts Jesus, like the whole family's coming. Maybe it takes a while though. Believe me, a lot of people out there are like, well, that's not working for me. It takes time, but he will work on the whole family. So it's so beautiful to see that. I love that. Wow. That's just an amazing story. I'm just so grateful for that you shared it, that you've experienced it, that you're saved. Um, Okay, so I guess what would your advice be for people that are now, in the new age, maybe kind of curious about Jesus, but not sure, or happen to stumble across this video and they're hearing you, but they're just not quite sure. Like what do you have to say?
I would just say, the spiritual realm is very real. Spiritual warfare is very real. Um, and Jesus is the strongest. You want him on your team. And even though the things, like they may appear to be healing, they're not. It's deception. It may help for a little bit, but it will not sustain you. The only thing that will sustain you is Jesus.
Yeah.
And you don't need anything else if you have him.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. I love it. I get so filled sharing these testimonies because it's just like it's amazing what he has done. And that song, what is it? Let me tell you about my Jesus, right? What that he can do for you what he's done for me. It is so true. And I love like being able to connect with people like you that fully understand like
Yep.
this transformation that he can do this for you too. All you have to do is
Absolutely.
accept him.
And I would say too, and this was said to me, but I would like to share this, is he meets you where you are. You don't
Mm,
have to be pure. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have like that. That's the point of it. He's
yeah.
there to help you and to rescue and to bring you out of that. All you
Yeah.
have to do is surrender and fully surrender. Like where I had the one foot in and I was praying and he was in my heart. It's not enough. You've got to give it all to him. And then he can rescue you. He can work miracles and he will literally take away the desires for whatever, if it's an addiction or alcohol or the anxiety. He takes it away. Like it literally goes away. It is magical. It is what the things that I think we're searching for when we go to do these like metaphysical things. We're drawn to the supernatural. There's nothing more supernatural than Jesus.
Yes.
He can make
Yeah.
anything happen. He's magical.
We were born to be in relationship with the one true God. Our bodies crave it, our hearts, our spirits, we crave him. And
Yes,
again, that is why we go to the new
all
age
these
stuff,
different
to the
realms. We're
supernatural stuff, to
searching for
all.
him. We just don't know what it is.
Exactly. And once you find him, it's
You
just
know.
like, what? It was Jesus all along, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like this
Mm-hmm.
eye-opening veil coming off the whole experience. And yeah, and I'm sure you feel the same way I do. Like, I just want the whole world to know this truth,
Absolutely.
And it breaks my heart that people reject it. But the one thing I did want to say is earlier you were saying that you had this fear of going to the church meeting, the first small group meeting, because you're like, I'm this heathen, like they're not going to relate to me. I can't share my stories with them. And isn't it interesting how the enemy leads us into sin, right? And then uses that sin to keep us away from Jesus.
Absolutely. Keep us bound in shame and guilt and oh, I'm not good enough. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that way. It's just
Right.
not.
No, Jesus loves you no matter what you've done, no matter how bad you think you are, all you have to do is open the door and say, I need you. He's right there waiting for you. Like, I promise you. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
So
and he's and
beautiful.
he's there with you even when you're doing all of the sinful things and
Yeah.
all the new agey practices. And like he was there for me. He never
Mhm.
gave up on me ever.
Yeah,
I just needed to go to him.
exactly. To acknowledge him and say, like, help me.
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Help me and just get rid of everything else and just fully surrender it to him.
yeah, exactly. So beautiful. So beautiful. Okay. I mean, that's it right there. Do you
Oh, well,
have anything
and
else?
let's add on
Yeah.
that a week after my accident, when I wanted to figure out what things I was potentially doing that were spiritually dangerous, I started looking up YouTubes of new age things and new age to Jesus. And that's how I found you.
Yay. That always amazes me because like, I'm newer channel and all of that. And I know that like there's these like huge channels that are doing New Age to Jesus. So when someone tells me that I'm one of like the first videos they came across, like that is so God because I'm not going to be the first one showing up on the list. So
No, and I
yeah.
just felt like connected to you and like we had similar-ish stories where like it was like relatable, and I was like, I need to talk to her. And then I think maybe I added you on Instagram or something, and
Mm.
right around that time you literally posted like that, like the next week or something like that, you were going to be having this New Age to Jesus call, and I was like, well, that couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's worked out really well, and I found my tribe, and it's been
yeah.
awesome.
It is awesome. I'm so grateful to have you. It's just
Community is so important.
yeah. And I want to put that out there if anyone's watching this that has gone from New Age to Jesus, because I know I binge watched testimonies when I first made this like, transition, if you will. So if you are one of these people that have gone from all these New Age practices and you've now accepted Jesus, you are welcome to join our group. It is open. We have Zoom calls twice a month, and then we also have a Telegram chat that's just open all the time. So I'll link everything in the description for anyone that wants to join that, because that's, Kelly is a part of that with me, and we share all kinds of things in that group. So yeah. Is there anything else or any way that people can get in touch with you directly, if they wanted to reach out with questions or anything?
Sure. Yeah, I have a Instagram. It's kroby3. If
Okay.
anyone's interested. Yeah.
All right. I'll put that in the description. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so very much for sharing your story. It is so inspirational, and I'm so grateful to have you as a friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the episode. I want to let you know that there are 3 different ways that you can get in touch and be a part of the Finding Fulfillment Together community. The first way is through our New Age to Jesus Zoom calls and our Telegram chat. So I have a group of people that have gone from having New Age beliefs to now knowing Jesus that have come together, and we meet twice a month on Zoom where we talk all about our journeys, what we're going through, spiritual warfare. We have so much in common. It's such an amazing group of people. Love for you to be a part of that. Just click the link in the link tree to sign up. And you can also click the link for the Telegram chat, which is just open all the time. Same group of people there that you can communicate with on a regular basis. So see both of those links in the link tree. The second way to get in contact and to be a part of community is through one-on-one calls with me, which are completely free. So if you just want someone to talk to, if you have questions, if you're kind of struggling with faith in Jesus, you're coming out of New Age, or just in general, just want someone to talk to about Christian faith, maybe you don't have a lot of people in your life that you can talk to, please call me. I love all kinds of discussions. Even if it's not about Jesus, if you just need a friend, want someone to talk to, my calendar is open. You can find the link to book time with me in my link tree as well. And last but not least, I have a Facebook community for women. So, sisters in Christ to come together and share our faith, talk about Jesus, support each other. And you can find that link in the link tree as well. All of these are free. All of these are just opportunities for us to have community and support each other. And I hope that you take advantage, and I hope to see you there. And with that, I just want to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.